I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this kind of story, but here we are. My name is Jake, and I was married to Emily for about 7 years. We had always wanted a family. We'd been trying to get pregnant for almost 2 years when we decided to go the surrogate route. It was supposed to be this beautiful, hopeful journey. We found a surrogate named Lisa, and everything seemed perfect at first. Happy, excited, full of plans. I genuinely thought we were building something good, something real. But from the moment we started the process, Emily changed. She became distant, more irritable, and honestly, she started lying about petty things. I'd ask her what was wrong, and she'd brush me off with a sharp comment or just shut down entirely. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed. This whole thing is a massive emotional roller coaster after all. But then, small things started to add up. Her phone started disappearing, or she'd hide it when I walked into the room. She'd get these strange texts late at night, and I'd catch her looking at her phone with that guilty expression, the one that screams I'm hiding. I tried to brush it off. I wanted to believe she was just stressed about the baby stuff. But then I noticed she was meeting with Lisa more than just the usual check-ins. She'd go out for coffee, but I'd see her car parked at that sketchy little cafe that Lisa liked. I'd ask her about it, and she'd say I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. She'd call me possessive, say I was imagining things, but I was. Something was definitely wrong. And then came the night I found out. It was a Wednesday. I was working late at the office, supposed to be finishing a report, but my curiosity kept bugging me. I decided to check her phone, something I normally wouldn't do, but I couldn't shake this feeling that I was missing something big. I unlocked her phone when she was in the shower. What I saw there might as well have shattered my entire world. It was hundreds of texts, explicit messages, photos. She was having sex with someone. And not just anyone. It was Lisa's husband. Lisa's husband, Mark, our surrogate, the one we trusted, the one we paid to help us build our family. I couldn't believe it. I stared at the screen, reading messages about how much they missed each other, secret meetings, and pictures of Emily in bed with Mark. I felt like I'd been hit by a train. It was the worst betrayal I could imagine. She was cheating on me with the man who was supposed to help us have this dream of a family, and she was doing it behind my back for months. I felt sick. My stomach dropped, my hands trembled. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to scream, to break everything, but I just stood there, frozen, staring at the phone. I knew I had to confront her. This wasn't just a fling. This was something that ran deep, deep enough that it had tainted our entire journey to become parents. I kept thinking about the innocent baby we'd been trying to bring into this world, and how her betrayal was tainting that miracle. It was like the universe had thrown us the worst possible curse at the worst possible time. When she came out of the shower, I was waiting for her. She looked at me strangely, like she knew I'd found out. I didn't even say a word. I just held out her phone and let her see the screen. Her face twisted into this arrogant sneer, like she thought she could just lie her way out of it. She rolled her eyes, scoffing, "Oh, please, Jake. It's not what you think. You're overreacting as usual." She laughed bitterly, then spun around and walked into the bedroom, leaving me standing there, numb and furious all at once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, the texts, the fact that she was sleeping with Mark, the man we both trusted, the surrogate who was supposed to help us get our baby. It felt like my entire world was crumbling. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something to make it all stop. But mostly, I just felt this gnawing emptiness, like I'd been betrayed not just by her, but by the universe itself. The thought that our miracle was now stained by deception, by treachery, that's what haunted me the most. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was twisted in knots. I knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. It wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about the future we'd planned, the life we'd tried so hard to build. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see this coming. I always thought Emily was the one who was honest, straightforward. Turns out I was dead wrong. I decided I had to talk to her again, not just for answers, but because I needed to hear her lie to my face. I needed to see how far she'd go to deny everything. I sat her down later that afternoon, her eyes narrowing as she saw me come into the room with the look of a man who had just found out something terrible. "Emily, I started, voice trembling. I saw your phone this morning, the messages, the photos, everything. How could you do this to me, to us, to the baby? She scoffed, crossing her arms. Oh, come on, Jake, you're overreacting. It's not what it looks like. You're just paranoid. You always jump to conclusions. I clenched my fists. No, Emily, I saw it with my own eyes. You're cheating on me with Mark, the surrogate, the man we trusted to help us make a family. Her eyes flashed with anger. You're crazy. You think I'd cheat on you with Mark? That's disgusting. You're just jealous because I have a life outside of this perfect little box you want to keep me in. I felt my blood boil. Jealous? No, I'm furious. You've been lying to me for months. I caught you sneaking around, lying about where you're going. You're sleeping with him, with Lisa's husband. How could you turn our entire journey into some sick game? She rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with contempt. You think I can't have my own life? You blame me for everything. You're so insecure. This is just a phase, Jake. I was stressed, confused, and Mark, well, he's just someone who listens. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her words sounded hollow, like she was trying to spin some kind of story she thought I'd buy. But I knew the truth. I knew she'd been lying from the start. I felt a cold fury rising inside me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was destruction. I told her I needed time to think, that I couldn't be with someone who lied to me like this. She sneered and said I was overreacting, that I was jealous and paranoid. She claimed she loved me but needed space, and that I was just making everything worse. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, and ask how she could be so callous, so indifferent to what she'd done. But I kept my mouth shut, knowing that nothing I said now would change the truth. That night I sat alone in the living room, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I had loved Emily, I had trusted her, and now it felt like everything I believed in was a lie. The woman I married had been betraying me for months, possibly even longer. I kept thinking about the baby we wanted and how her actions threatened to ruin everything. I wondered if I could forgive her, if I even wanted to. But deep down, I knew one thing: I couldn't just let this go. Not without some kind of justice. She might think she could lie her way out of this, but I was done playing her game. I started planning what I'd do next. I had to figure out how to confront her again, how to save what little dignity I had left, and most importantly, how to protect myself and my future from this betrayal. Because if I didn't, I knew her lies would tear everything apart: my marriage, my sanity, and the chance at a family we'd fought so hard for. The days that followed were like walking through a fog. I stayed silent most of the time, trying to gather my thoughts and figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Every time I looked at Emily, I saw her differently. Her eyes, her sneer, the way she dismissed everything like I was some obstacle in her life. I kept replaying that night's discovery over and over, and that helpless rage started to simmer into something darker, a need for revenge, even if I didn't quite know how to execute it yet. I started noticing more things. Small things, but significant enough to make me realize Emily wasn't just lying about her affair, she was also trying to cover her tracks. I found receipts in her purse, some at that cafe where she met Lisa, and others from stores she claimed she hadn't visited. She was sneaky, but not sneaky enough. I kept everything, hoarding the evidence like a damn fool because I knew I'd need it later. One afternoon, I decided to do a little digging myself. I couldn't trust her words anymore, so I needed the truth from someone else. I reached out to Lisa, surrogate Lisa, the woman who was supposed to be helping us. I had to know if Emily was telling the truth about her meetings with her. It was a gamble, risking a confrontation that could blow up in my face, but I had to be sure. I messaged Lisa casually, asking if she'd had any recent meetings with Emily. Her reply was quick and cold. Yeah, we met last week. She came by my place. Why do you ask? That one little message knocked the wind out of me. It confirmed everything I feared, that Emily had been lying to my face about her meetings, her intentions, everything. I responded, asking outright if Emily and Mark had been seeing each other. Her reply was blunt. Yes, they're more involved than you realize. Sorry if that's a shock. I stared at the screen in disbelief. It was like a punch to the gut, but at the same time it felt like a small victory. I finally had proof, undeniable proof, that Emily's narrative was a web of lies. Now I had to decide how to confront her again. I knew I couldn't just come at her with accusations anymore. I had to play it smart. I wanted her to admit everything, to see that I had her cornered. My first instinct was to call her out right then and there, but I paused. I knew I needed a plan, an edge, something to shake her up and make her confess more than just the surface lies. Late that night, I set up a small hidden recorder in the living room. I wanted to catch her in the act, to hear what she'd say when she thought I wasn't listening. The whole thing felt like some twisted game, but I didn't care anymore. I needed the truth, no matter how ugly. I had a feeling that once I played that recording, everything would change. The next day, I waited for her to come home from work. When she finally arrived, she looked annoyed, trying to act like she hadn't been lying to me for months. I kept my cool, asking her about her day, about the meetings with Lisa, about her space she'd been talking about. She snapped at me, acting bitchy, defensive, but I kept pushing. Finally, I told her I'd recorded her. Her eyes widened, and for a split second she looked genuinely scared. Then she scoffed again, trying to brush it off. "Oh, Jake, you're so paranoid. You're just trying to control me. Typical." But I pressed play on the recorder. The sound of her voice, her lies, her admitted affair with Mark, her sneering denials, everything. Watching her face twist in shock and anger was oddly satisfying, but it also made me realize how deep this all went. In that moment, I knew I couldn't stay with her. Not after this. Not after she'd betrayed everything we'd built. But I also knew I had to be smart about how I handled the fallout. This wasn't just about catching her in a lie anymore. It was about protecting myself, my dignity, and whatever future I still had left to salvage. I didn't want her to think she'd won, not without a fight. So I started planning my next move, how to confront her, how to get her out of my life for good, and how to finally start healing from what felt like the worst betrayal I could have ever imagined. The aftermath of that recording was a strange mix of relief and rage. I finally had definitive proof, but knowing Emily's true nature cut deep. She acted like she was the victim, as always, trying to spin her lies even when caught red-handed. I could see it in her eyes, her bitchy smirk, the way she refused to admit anything directly, instead throwing blame and insults. She kept insisting I was paranoid, jealous, controlling, but I knew better now. I saw her for what she was, a liar, a manipulator, someone who had turned our life into a twisted game. The moment I pressed play, she started to panic. Her face turned pale and her voice became defensive and shrill. "You're overreacting, Jake. This is all a misunderstanding." I swear I was just confused, stressed. "It means nothing." That was the classic line she used every time she got caught. It means nothing, like her. Sex with Mark was some minor mistake, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw everything clearly, her lies, her manipulations, how she thought she could just brush this off and go back to pretending everything was fine. I told her she could deny it all she wanted, but I had the evidence now. I couldn't stay married to someone who lied that easily, who betrayed our entire future just to indulge in some secret affair. That's when things got even messier. He started calling me names, jealous, possessive, bitter, trying to make me feel guilty for finally catching her. But I didn't care about her feelings anymore. All I cared about was ending this nightmare, about getting out of this toxic mess. I told her I needed time to think, that I couldn't trust her anymore. She sneered, then threw the "you're just insecure" line at me. That pissed me off even more. She's the one sleeping with her surrogate's husband, and she's calling me insecure. Unbelievable. I was sick of her spinning stories, trying to make me doubt myself. I knew I had to do something more, something big, to make her realize that I wasn't just going to roll over and accept her lies. That night I started planning my exit. I knew I couldn't stay under the same roof with her. I packed a bag, just enough to get by for a few days, and I posted an anonymous message to Lisa, warning her about Emily's lies and manipulations. I wanted her to know that I wasn't just going to sit quietly and let this mess fester. I also contacted a lawyer, just to get a sense of my rights, to understand how to protect myself legally. I knew this was only the beginning and I had to be smart. Meanwhile, Emily kept acting like she was the victim. She was bitchy, throwing tantrums, accusing me of destroying her. She tried to guilt-trip me into staying, saying we were meant to be, that I was overreacting and that I'd regret pushing her away. But I knew better. I'd seen her true face now, the manipulative, selfish woman who would do anything to keep her secret. The more she tried to guilt me, the more I realized I was done playing her game. I was devastated, honestly. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. But now I saw her for who she was, a liar, a cheater, someone willing to destroy everything for her own selfish needs. The thing that haunted me most was the fact that she'd betrayed not just me, but our unborn child, our hope for a family. That thought kept me awake most nights, feeling like I was losing everything I'd ever wanted. I kept asking myself, was there any way back from this? Could I forgive her? Deep down, I knew I couldn't. Not after all this. I needed to get out, to cut her loose and start over, and I'd make sure she knew I wasn't going to be a part of her lies anymore. I was done. Done with her, done with the betrayal, done with the pain. But that didn't mean it was easy. Far from it. Moving forward was going to be a hell of a fight, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what was coming next. The decision to leave her wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I spent days gathering my thoughts, making plans, and trying to brace myself for the fallout. I knew Emily wouldn't take this well. She thrived on control, on manipulation. And I was pretty sure she'd do everything in her power to turn things around, to make me feel guilty enough to stay. But I also knew I couldn't let her. Not anymore. I had to protect myself, and more than that, I had to protect my own sanity. One morning, I finally sat her down to tell her I was leaving. She was still in bed when I walked into the room, her bitchy smirk already forming at the corner of her mouth. She knew I was serious. She always played the victim, but this time she looked nervous, at least for a second. I was calm, cold even. I laid out everything I knew, the texts, the receipts, the recordings, and told her I couldn't stay with someone who had lied and cheated on me for months. She tried to deny everything, her voice rising in that sharp, bitchy tone she always used when she was losing control. "You're psycho, Jake. You're making this all up. You're just jealous because I didn't want to be stuck in this fake marriage anymore." Her eyes flashed with anger as she spat the words. "You're just trying to ruin me because I won't be your doormat anymore." I shook my head. "No, Emily, I'm done. I've had enough of your lies, your manipulation. I know the truth now. You've been sleeping with Mark, the man we trusted to help us have our baby, and you've been lying about everything. I can't stay with someone like that, not after what I found out." She looked stunned for a moment, then her face twisted into that familiar sneer, like she was trying to find a way to turn this around on me. "You're crazy. You're overreacting. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just jealous because I'm finally doing what I want." I wasn't about to let her lie her way out of it again. I pulled out the evidence I'd collected, texts, the recordings, the receipts, and laid them on the bed. Her face went pale. Her excuses sounded pathetic, like she was trying to cling to the last shred of her control. "You see," I said, voice firm, "this is who you really are. I can't be with someone who manipulates me like this, who lies and cheats and sneers at everything we had. I want a divorce." Her laugh was bitter. "Fine, if that's what you want, but you'll regret it. You're making a huge mistake. You're losing everything, your family, your baby. And for what? Some stupid pride." That's when I knew I finally had to follow through. I told her I'd be filing for divorce that day. I packed my essentials and left, not wanting to stay under the same roof with her anymore. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders, but also this gnawing sense of loss. Loss of the woman I thought I knew, loss of the future we'd planned, and the pain of realizing how deeply I'd been betrayed. Leaving her behind was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But I also knew it was the only way to start healing. I filed the papers that night, and over the next few weeks I slowly began to rebuild my life. I moved out, started therapy, and began distancing myself from her toxic lies. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There was so much anger and sadness I hadn't even begun to process, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I was finally free from her grip. The most painful part was knowing that the miracle we'd tried so hard to create, the baby, had been tainted from the start. That the woman I loved had used that hope as a cover for her own selfish needs. I still think about that baby, wonder if she's safe, if she's okay, and I can't help but feel the ache of what could have been. But I also know I have to move on, to find some kind of peace. Maybe someday I'll forgive her. Maybe not. But for now, I just have to live with the truth and try to find a way to heal from this chaos she left behind. In the weeks that followed, life felt like a slow, painful process of peeling back the layers of betrayal. I moved out, got my own place, and started seeing a therapist to help me deal with everything. Honestly, I felt like I was rebuilding myself from the ground up. Every day was a struggle, remembering the good times, fighting the guilt, trying not to drown in the anger. But what kept me going was the simple fact that I was finally free from her manipulations. I kept thinking about the woman I married and how she could have thrown away everything we worked for, all for some fleeting pleasure. The image of her sneering and lying, trying to justify her affair with Mark, that's what haunted me most. It wasn't just the betrayal itself, but the way she dismissed the pain she caused as if it was nothing. She thought she could just lie her way out, but I saw through her every word now. The woman I thought I knew was just a mask, and behind it was someone cold, selfish, and manipulative. I also thought about the future, what kind of life I wanted now. I realized that I'd never fully trust her again, not after everything. The thought of her with Mark, their betrayal of our trust, it's something I'll carry forever. But I also learned a lot from this. I learned to trust my instincts, to listen to that little voice inside telling me when something was wrong. I learned how destructive lies can be and how important it is to value honesty and loyalty in a relationship. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes you have to walk away to save yourself. No matter how much love you have, if it's built on lies, it's not worth holding on to. I've come to accept that I'll probably never fully get over what she did, but I can move past it. I can rebuild my life, learn to trust again, and find happiness on my own terms. Looking back, I wish I had seen the signs earlier. Maybe I could have prevented all this pain. But I also know now that I can't change what happened. All I can do is learn from it and protect myself going forward. I hope my story serves as a warning to anyone out there who might be in a similar situation. Trust your gut, don't ignore the small signs, and don't be afraid to walk away if it means saving yourself. Because, in the end, the only person you truly have is yourself, and your happiness and integrity are worth more than any lie or betrayal.